So one of the true honors of getting to do this Poems in the Street is it's very accessible to all sides of people. And oftentimes homeless people come up, and I love writing poems for them because they're so full of stories, such interesting characters. They really appreciate it, and we just always have this bond. And there's a woman in our town that I don't often engage with because she could be quite precarious. You never know what kind of mood she's in. But if you ever do get talking to her, she's super smart, literate, verbose, historical references. She's just this wealth of information. And I approach her like a horse usually. I just don't want to spook her because she can be in her moods. But she came up to me and she was like, "Would you write me a poem?" And I was like, "Absolutely." And she's like, "All right, I want it to be really gory." And I was like, "Well, I never really wrote a gory poem before." She's like, "I want it in the style of," and she named off a bunch of really obscure, like 16th, 17th century poets, which blew my mind. I was like looking at her like, wow. She's like, "And I want, if you need any inspiration, use the Battle of," she named all these historical, antiquated battles. And, uh, and she's like, "But I want it to have a turn at the end, okay? Like gory, but, with a bit of a, lightness towards it." I was like, okay. So I sat down towards the end of the day, and I had to move. I couldn't get it done. And I saw her, and she was like, "Well, how did it go?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm going to have to do it another day." And I saw the look on her face, and I was like, "Oh, darn." And I was heading towards the car. I just pulled out the table, was like, pulled out the typewriter, and I just wrote it. And I went run back up the street. I was looking for her. I didn't see her anywhere, and I finally spotted her in one of the cafes. It was closed. I knock on the door. I'm like, "Hey, I got your poem." So we sit down. She's drinking a cup of tea, and she's like, "Okay, let me have it." Ripped from the talons of its tenacity, vitriol and vile veracity, I have gained grip in the slipping of its grasp, gasping for breath. In the brevity tween cradle and death, I heave a plummeting spear through the charge of the barbaric laid waste. Beneath my brandished blade, make haste, my foe, before me, for your fate meet a gory and ultimately gruesome grave awaits, for your dastardly deeds proceeded. And rising from the shadows, the sound of banshees bellow. For you and your bedfellows, a siren song is sung. The bell in toll is rung, the path of wrath begun, and rest not till I'm done. And there is left no one remaining in your progeny. The last thing that they see be me, harvesting their treachery and relishing their screeches. I will shake the tree of its peaches, leave the carnage on the beaches, heads on post for all to see. For righteous is my vengeance for your lack of repentance and everything you robbed and stole from me. This is for the people, indigenous and simple, who wanted to be equal before you stooped so low. And with a final blow, the quivering of my bow bestowed. She was like, "Are you published? You really knew the assignment." It was cool to have that bond with her, and I gave it to her. And yeah, I was so delighted to get to do that for her, and it actually turned out to be this kind of like an homage to indigenous people.